Felicia.
Hello.
Hey there.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. So tell me your dream.
Okay. I call it the assignment. This was on um, the 2nd of January of this year. I dreamt that I had arrived to a beautiful hotel. It was sunny outside and warm. There were very large containers with trees full of all kinds of fruit. There were grapes and pears in the one that I ate from, some of the largest grapes I had ever seen. When I entered the hotel, it was very busy, and I began to head to the elevator while I checked in on my phone, only to notice that I had entered the elevator, that my room number was 157. I got off the elevator and then sat down at a table. Several elderly women came and sat as well. One of the ladies stood out to me as she had extremely thick gray hair, large glasses, and was wearing a long, light blue sweater that went to her ankles. Another woman came over to escort her to where she was going. And then I noticed the woman in the light blue sweater, shoes were bound to her feet so they would not come off. This woman reminded me of Queen Elizabeth. I went looking for my room and went into a large open area where there were only a few people. I couldn't seem to find my room and found it odd that the rooms with 400 numbers were on the first floor. I remember seeing room 457. Frustrated, I sat down in a big brown leather chair in front of the front desk. As I looked around the hotel, it was very grand in gesture with lots of rich cherry wood and wainscoting. The front desk was very large and tall. As I looked at it from my seat, it resembled a judge's bench. I rested for a moment and heard the name Deborah spoken 3 times. I then went back to the quiet area and found a hallway that took me to a secret door. It was my room 157. The room was large with the entire back wall of glass windows and a door that led out to an outdoor area. The bed had white linen and the room was white and had lots of light from outside. I went outside and walked up about 3 steps to a circular patio surrounded by grass. However, it was a path that led from my room to the center circular area and then down to a recreational area with games which I turned away from. I was only in undergarments. I did not feel ashamed. I felt free at this place and then turned to notice I was not alone. Teresa was down in the area right outside the door in a white tunic with her arms lifted to heaven. I then had a white tunic in my arms that I put on. The tunic went only to my knees, and then I woke up.
Wow. This is a very, very detailed dream. We're not gonna be able to do it justice. This is probably 2 hours of work at least,
Oh, wow.
because every single figurative symbol is very important. It's a dream of identity and destiny. You start out in a place of amazing fruitfulness, but it's fruitfulness that's in containers. It hasn't been released yet, hasn't been allowed to grow free or wild. So there's a level of multiplication that hasn't yet occurred. So there's fruitfulness and there's plenty of it, but there's kind of a cap on how far it can go at this point. And then you go inside, and it's interesting that you're looking for your room. I'm just going to kind of give you the highlights. There's probably a lot that I'm going to miss, but your room number was 157, but the first floor was really the 4th floor. And so you end up in room 457, right?
I'm sorry, come again?
So you end up in room 457 instead of 157.
No, I was on the first floor and the room numbers were 400 numbers and I saw a room 457, but my room was 157.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So your assigned room was 157, but the 4th floor or the 4th floor numbers were on the 1st floor. And so even though it was the 1st floor, room number, whatever, 57, it was 300 off. So he 300 represents a remnant. You think of Gideon, you think of the 300, you think even of in regular history of, Thermopylae, like in the movie 300. Battles of significance against overwhelming odds were fought with 300 people in at least 2 cases, 2 well-known cases. Of course, one of them being scripturally, which was the strategy of that whole warfare was confirmed through a dream given to the enemy, which is interesting. But so in that room, you're in a big leather chair, and there was a lady you thought that might be Queen Elizabeth.
That's when I got off the elevator, I went to a table. It was a
Okay.
long table, and there were elderly ladies that came and sat there along with this woman. And there was this kind of escort came and got her and took her and led her away. And around her feet, they were bound. It was like, well, I'm not an artist, but it looked like this. Can you see her right here? Well,
Hold on, let me make this bigger here.
so she had shoes on, but there was
Okay.
they were bound to her. There were like straps around her.
So she
She
couldn't
couldn't
take her
remove.
shoes off,
Exactly.
right? Okay.
And she reminded me of Queen Elizabeth on her casual days, where she's not got her hat and all of that on. She's just out in a casual manner. That's
Interesting.
who I thought of when I saw her.
Yeah. Well, and then was it in the room that you heard about the judge, and then you heard Deborah
It was when I was sitting,
at that table?
no, at the
Okay.
judge's seat, or at the leather. It was like this. Had the
Okay.
bench,
Yeah.
and then there were two leather chairs, and I heard Deborah, Deborah, Deborah,
Okay.
and I thought about Deborah in the Bible, because
Right.
it was like the judge's or bench, and then I was sitting in front.
Yeah. That's interesting that you end up in a place where the numbers don't seem to add up unless you add the 300, and then you're at this table with elderly ladies, and then there's the queen. Or you're feeling that it's we're not saying it's actually literally Queen Elizabeth, but that it feels like it's the queen, and then she gets kind of taken off, and she's obviously bound in some sort of restraint to prevent her shoes from coming off, and so you kind of wonder. That's just super interesting. What I'm hearing is the idea of standing before kings and queens, and in this place you're actually at a table with them, and then being in a position of a Deborah. Were you sitting behind the desk?
I was sitting in front of the desk.
In front of the desk, yeah, but you heard Deborah, Deborah, Deborah. Was there anybody else there?
No.
Yeah. So I feel like what that is it's a calling of your identity and your destiny, and it starts with what you saw on the outside, which you said there were fruit trees, but in containers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
It was like this. I'm not
yeah,
the great. They're kind of sparse as far as what I
sure.
actually saw in my dream, but it
Yeah.
was a large container with
So
a
like
tree
flower
with,
boxes kind of thing on a big scale
yes,
type of deal.
huge. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So I find it really interesting because I feel like the dream is alluding to you being somebody that can literally sit at the table of royalty, and royalty, even royalty that, um, how do I say this correctly? Royalty whose days may be soon over with or past, not any disrespect to the person that you saw in the dream, but just that they're definitely at the end of their reign. Um, And so you sit down, she's escorted away, her feet are bound, which means that her ability to be able to go places and to be free, um, to be able to, it's kind of like the fruitfulness in the trees. If you plant a tree in the forest, it can literally spread out and grow and propagate. And over years and years and years, it could, take over the whole forest or whatever. You put a tree in a flower box. Um, the first thing it'll have to do is break through the flower box and get its roots down deeper and all that. And so there's a sense of undiscovered destiny and undiscovered potential. And then I think the most significant part is when you're in, what appears to be almost like a courtroom or a judge's desk. And you hear, like a bench, and you hear the name Deborah, Deborah, Deborah. Have you ever been called a Deborah before?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I would suggest that you look up in Judges the life story of Deborah and really understand she wasn't just a judge in the sense that we would see a judge. She was like a warrior.
Mm-hmm.
So she was somebody that led the army, and somebody that led the charge and deliver the nation of Israel during a very troubling time. And so after that, you end up outside again, and you're in your undergarments, so you're not particularly bound in any way. You're not in a stuffy suit or anything like that. You're just it's kind of like as if it was your own lawn and you just wanted to go lay out like in a bathing suit or something like that. You're just kind of free to do whatever you want, roam the grounds and whatever you felt that was appropriate.
That's what.
And then your friend in the white tunic, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
She's
was a
down.
friend of yours?
I'm sorry.
Was that a friend of yours?
Actually, I don't know her like on a friendship level, but it was a person from my church.
Okay.
So I found out what her name was so that I had her name.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So like if we had time, I would want to know her name. We would want to know the meaning of her name, know what she represents to you, all these different things. It seems like she's a person that's very, very free. And then you end up getting a tunic as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which reminds me of the verse in Revelation that says, to him who overcomes, they will be given a white robe and a white stone with a new name known only to them. So in this dream, you get a new name, and the name is Deborah. And then when you go outside, you get a white tunic. So it's the idea of God is calling you to a different level of identity and destiny. Not that your identity or destiny is changing, but that you're coming into awareness of perhaps the spiritual identity and destiny for your life. And it's going to be very freeing, and it's going to put you in a place where if you fully embrace it, you'll be able to live your life complete, what we call fully expressed. If we don't know who we are, or if we feel like we're supposed to be this, and we feel like we're supposed to be a pastor, but we're really supposed to be a business guy, then we feel like a square peg in a round hole, and it feels very constricting and very, suffocating. And the whole dream, especially once you get back outside, is a juxtaposition between the idea of freedom and being bound. Again, it starts with the fruit trees. It goes, you go inside to the picture of the queen, right? And then the whole judge thing is the whole thing about a new name. And then you come outside and, you're very free in your dress and what you're wearing. And then you're given a white tunic, which is also, very much a freedom. And this lady is kind of dancing with her hands in the air. And it's just the idea of completely being unbound. It's like you went inside in order to get the name and to get the freedom that you need to enter fully into the destiny and the purpose that God has for you.
That is awesome.
Yeah, what I would say, I'm trying to think what the best video we have is. We probably have on our some of our old videos, we go through what we call the Joseph method, where we just do a study on Genesis 41, and we look at how Joseph took every single symbol and separated it out and then interpreted what every symbol means. And that's simply just by just doing what I'm doing. You shut your brain off. It's not word association. You kind of shut your prophetic discernment off. I'm not trying to give you a prophetic word. I'm trying to hear from God what the symbols mean. And then you just get quiet and you listen, and you're like, table, what does that mean? I hear high table, kind of like in John Wick, the high table, people that are in charge of the world leaders. You're at that table. And of course, the Queen of England is there, which makes sense, and so you write every one of those down. And then based on the symbols, the interpretation of the symbols, we put together a conclusive summary. And then based on the conclusive summary, we put together actionable intelligence, just like Joseph in the Bible said, there'll be 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. But here's what you should do. Let Pharaoh appoint a guy, put 8 commissioners over the grain, and put 20% in the walls of the city during the years of plenty. And so we like to dive deep on dream interpretation. I could just say, it's a dream about identity and, God, no. There's very specific things that God wants to tell you in this dream. And we've hit kind of a general overall summary that it's about being unbound. It's about freedom versus restriction. It's about entering a place where you're part of a remnant, or you go into a room that represents remnancy, and you come out with a new name, and then you get a new robe, and then it's displayed before you, the whole idea of freedom. And you saw somebody that's been a ruler and been in a high place for a long time, but now at this part of their life is more bound than they are free. And so those are the main themes: is freedom, identity, purpose, and destiny for you. So yeah, it's a really important dream for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing
It's
it with us.
exciting. It's very exciting.
Awesome. All right, have a good one, Felicia.
You too. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.